Hello, and today I'm with Brian, and Brian is an expert, in my opinion, on the X-type Jaguar, amongst others.
Only the last 30 years. I got another 20 or 30 years before I get there.
I'm going to introduce you to Brian, and he's just pointing out some of the ways of finding out trim codes.
Yep, trim and paint codes, which appear in the left-hand front door of your X-type. Down at the bottom of the BC post, there's the label down there, which I'm sure Russ will be able to show you.
Yeah, I've just
and it gives you separate code. In Russ's case, it's JJF, and the trim code is SEL, with another code which probably indicates the carpet colour. So what is that, JW, the second one?
Yeah.
So SEL is the leather trim, and JW will be the carpet fibre colour.
It's great, yeah.
Number, it's the D86513, the last 6 characters beginning with the D, 86513. So if you look up on Jag website, the Heritage website, or SNG Barrett, it will say before such and such a VIN code, and you can stop scratching your head because you know where to look for it now. There's your VIN, and you can get the right part exactly.
That's brilliant.
From the VIN code.
That's brilliant, Brian. It's been a big help to me to finding out the and the other thing is, you can just, like you say, Brian, you're just Googling those trim numbers and it comes up straight away what colour you need to get for your car.
Well, any company that provides car body paint colour will ask you actually for that code. Because if you just say champagne, there's probably a number of different shades of champagne depending on the manufacturer. Because it won't be only Jaguar that's used champagne as a description of its colour, but SEL will give them the mix for that specific paint. It's what I've done for my Jags in the past, and you get an aerosol back which is made up specially to that 3-letter code. And whenever I've used it, it's great. It matches precisely.
Thank you, Brian. That's very useful information. Thank you. I'm sure a lot of the viewers of the X-type Jaguar side of iconic brands will find that very useful information.
Yes, indeed. I hope it helps.
Thanks for that, Brian. More from Brian later in the video. Next is the fuel accuracy test. Just how accurate is it? This was done with 3 separate fill-ups over 928 miles, i.e. fill the tank up to the brim, run it down, fill it up again, and do that 3 times. And then you can make the calculation of how accurate the fuel indicator is by dividing the fuel consumption by the amount of gallons used. Half of the journey was done with the car fully loaded with 3 other passengers, with a mixture of motorway driving and A and B roads, to get a fair comparison. The results for using this method of calculating how much fuel the car was actually using was quite surprising. By its accuracy, the car was telling me 32.7, and this was the actual calculated amount, which just goes to show how accurate these actually are, within 0.1 of a gallon.
Good test of the suspension on this car is this road in Silliff.
Coincidence? There's another X-type. On this cobblestone street, and it's really bumpy, the car absolutely amazed me with how well it damped out the indentations of the road. Before the next part of the video, Brian's going to show us his XJ project and how it's progressing, which I'm also following on Iconic Brands.
Look at this.
You've got to learn how to walk sideways.
I do all the time in my garage, Brian. I can't get anything else in.
Yes.
It's a beautiful colour. I mean, look at that, Jag fans.
Yes.
Look at this colour of this car. It is just XJ8.
XJ8 3.2.
Just show you in there.
1999.
19.
Give us some more lighting.
Let's have a look.
And welcome to the workshop.
Right. So this was, I remember the...
Well, I remember the bonnet was up on that frame.
There was a great
there,
idea, yeah.
The lamp suspended from the bonnet. And it was an easy job then to put it... When I put the car back down on the ground, I was then able to drive the car backwards out of the garage, swing the bonnet down, hanging on these ropes, and I've completely refurbished the underside of the bonnet. There was originally a fibre board, black fibre board.
That's right,
insulator board, but I've taken all that off, sprayed it gunmetal grey, which is my favourite colour, and put sound deadening sticky back. It's not very thick. But
were those already shaped for the car, Brian, or did you have to cut them?
That's the structural shape of the stiffener that's underneath. So all I've done is cut my insulation sheets to that shape.
Right.
And of course they just stick straight on. So I made cardboard templates, you know, just put, well actually it was stiff paper, and they've just pressed it hard up against here. You get the line, cut that out, put it on top of your sound deadening sheet, and just cut around it and go straight in.
That's awesome. That's a hell of a job.
Well, you don't quite cut it right. You can actually stick it underneath the edge because
lose
the
it underneath.
just sits slightly proud of the bonnet itself, the bonnet line. And compared with how it used to look, and of course I've resprayed all around the engine compartment because I had all the equipment out, everything out except for the short engine. I had everything off the top of the engine. I had the whole cooling system out, and the aircon hardly worked whilst from when I first bought the car, so I fitted all new aircon equipment, including the condenser at the front. I've used the old pipes, and I'm just setting myself up now to do air conditioning.
Okay. And did you, you've obviously done the welding underneath.
Yes,
there was the legs underneath.
The longitudinal legs where the engine mount sits on, which is a regular MOT failure on these on XJ8s. At this age, so about 20 years, it's really quite a reinforced area, but unfortunately there's like an inverted saddle that they've put underneath and where the subframe mount goes, and it acts as like a tub, and I imagine that water gets in there and it doesn't get out, and that's exactly where it wears, in exactly the wrong place, and that's what makes it such an impossible job. And your average DIY guy would not tackle it, and a garage would probably charge you £3,000.
Is that because the engine has to come out what
I did was to take all the suspension, the subframe out, and supported the engine from above with a blue engine frame I had. Do you remember when you were here last? I had an engine frame across, and so I could just lift the engine slightly up. So I had about that much. Oh, of course, you take the hydro mounts out, so you actually got quite a lot of room then. But you don't weld on top. You actually weld on the other three sides of the longitudinal leg. And again, I made paper templates once I'd cut out all the rusty parts. There's 3 thicknesses of metal, and it rusted through all 3. And they know what to look for on the MOT, because when it was MOT, this guy went straight to that point and he said, "I don't need to look at anything else. I'm afraid it's a failure."
Yeah.
And that was 3 years ago, so it's taken me a while to do this, but I've been retired since just before, and I've absolutely loved it. It's kept me out of the pubs and off the street corners.
Which is a shame, Brian. We don't see enough of you.
That's why you haven't seen much of me recently. Yes, that's right.
I just love to see that all new nuts and
Yep, those strut tops are new.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it's
no expense spared.
It's got his trim plate, but that looks wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. I bet you can't wait to start that.
Well, of course, I've had it running, and I've actually backed it out of the garage in order to give me room to do the bonnet. Backed it back in, and now I'm repairing the wings, and I've got one of the wings up there, and I'll show you what I'm doing with that, because the other regular rusty part is the backs of the front wings.
So they're bolt-on.
If you'd like to see more of Brian's XJ project, please look up this video on iconic brands.
Of course, is the other side, but I've trimmed this back a bit because there is a body line there, and there's a trim piece. I decided to do it there because that trim piece, when it goes back on,
Yeah,
will
it makes
cover
sense.
up most
Makes
of that
sense.
weld.
Yeah.
So this is a case of positioning it, trying it, taking it off, trimming it a bit more, reposition it. I'm actually just this morning got it in exactly the right position. So I've got to take that weld and of course grind that back till it's flat, and then weld it down this back edge here. And this one was important because you get the position of it here so it matches up with the door flush. This bottom edge has to be at the right height because you need a consistent gap over the sill.
We've all been there, Brian, on this
I already
sort of
repaired the front end of the sill, which had rusted away. And up on the wall there's all the cardboard templates I made.
It's amazing. We've got all this new technology, and yet scissors, a pair of scissors.
I've got a good pair of scissors there. A black pen.
Yeah, you can't beat a black
And I've got
pen.
some sheets of metal, and got my little Clark welder down there on the floor.
Fair play to you, mate. Fair play to you. He's a labour of love, and I can see
I've enjoyed every minute.
It's great to see an update. So Jag fans who are watching this, please watch Iconic Brands and see how Brian progresses with his XJ.
Don't scrap off your XJ8. Do what I've done, mate. Welcome to the workshop. I'll
certainly be following Brian's XJ projects in further videos. Now, back to the X-Type.
One thing to notice with this car when it's been raining is to park the car with the front pointing uphill, because you get this, all that water dripping down and it catches, so you get a puddle in there. It actually holds the water in our end, but that only happens if you point the car downhill. If you park it pointing down, the water collects in this well here. So that's a little tip with the X-Type, is to park the car with the front facing upwards, then the water can drip down all the way down here. It is quite a water trap, that is. I mean, if you left that car parked pointing downhill for any length of time, that water would sit in there quite a long time. That's just a little tip that I've found with the X-Type since I've had it. Other than that, it's fine. Remember to park it facing uphill.
Please help the channel thrive by hitting the subscribe button. This will help promote the channel and encourage us to make more videos like the one you've just watched.